just in case we don't make 180, at least 120. But ask yourself, go back 30 years to 120. What do we have? 90, right? So the list, let's imagine the last 30 years of your 120 years. Are you interested in having more children?
Maybe great-grandchildren.
Right. So it's very interesting. Avraham Avinu, after the death of Sarah, remarries. He's 137 years old, and he has children and he has many children from his second or third wife, depending if we say he remarries his first wife, Hagar, or it's a different wife. Her name is Keturah. And you might ask yourself, like, Avraham Avinu is a great holy person. So what was he missing? He had a beautiful life with his wife, Sarah. He has a beautiful child, or perhaps more than one child. He has two children, actually, two men. We don't know if he had girls or how many. So why is he remarrying? And the obvious answer should be, it should be obvious to you. God gave Avram a mission. The mission was to publicize the existence of God. How do you do that? You start first with your own family. You try to influence the whole world and your kids are in prison, it's not such a good thing. You start by trying to have your own family, and then it radiates outwards to your community, to your neighborhood, etc. So Avraham Avinu was still was viral, so to speak. He had his health to the extent that he could have and sire children. So as a result, he continued his mission of bringing children to the world. Now I want to expand on that just for a moment. That's in this week's parsha. Okay, that's not Mia Drasha. That's in this week's parsha. But certainly there's a sort of a lesson to us, and that is that a person doesn't retire. You have to take two things in account: my physical health and my mental and spiritual health. When a person is physically not able to work, that doesn't mean your mind and heart stops. And just as we want to continue growing intellectually and spiritually and mentally and physically and so on, what we have to learn from our patriarchs and matriarchs is that they will live life to their fullest. We know for a fact that in Kabbalah, a husband and a wife is considered the first two letters of God's name, Yud and Hey. I'm sure you've heard of that. God's name in Hebrew is Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And a husband and a wife are Yud and Hey. What happens if, God forbid, one of these letters is erased? What does that mean? It could be a divorce, which is a tragedy, and it could also be people pass away. So what we have then is a Jewish person that, in a sense, is missing one of the letters. So whenever possible, it's not for all, but whenever possible, a second marriage or a third marriage is recommended on every level, not only in terms of companionship, but also in terms of a spiritual concept of having a, there's an expression like playing with a full deck. Yes, and you need masculine energy and feminine energy together in order to truly be a funnel for Hashem's greatness. So again, for those of you that just came, it's Parshas Chayei Sarah. It begins with the burial of Sarah, which means she passes away, and it ends with the death of Abraham. The first thing that strikes you, or one of the first things that strikes you, is that after the death of Sarah, he remarries and has children. And I'm repeating what I just said a minute ago, because his spiritual mission did not end. And as a practical lesson for us is, we have to understand that we function on many different levels. So, for example, bringing children to the world is a physical, but according to our tradition, bringing a person to life is a form of bringing children. So in the nicest way, we say whoever teaches Torah to a child or even to an adult, it's as if he gave birth to him, right? And that's a spiritual concept. But I would go a step further, and perhaps I'm overreaching a little bit, but if you could bring a person to life, so you have a neighbor, for example, who's very down, they're not happy, they don't have a zest, and if you could bring them to life in a certain way, you gave birth. You brought children, or to put it a little bit differently, you brought life to this world. So every one of us, irrespective whether whether we have a spouse or whether we're physically vigorous or maybe not physically vigorous, all of us still have, as long as you have your mind with Hashem's help, all of us have the potential of bringing life to others. So that's one of the things which now we could go back and look at the name of the parsha. It's fascinating. On page 106, in English, page 107, the first verse, I'll read it in Hebrew, then in English. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah, it was the life of Sarah, Meir Shana, 100 years, Esrim Shana, 20 years. It's page 107. Vesheva Shanim, and 7 years, Shnei Chayei Sarah, this is the years of Sarah. And the next verse begins, Vatama Sarah, and Sarah dies. So, it's an amazing concept. The name of the portion is Chayei Sarah, literally meaning the life of Sarah. But yet, there's nothing about her life. It begins with the sum of her life, and then she died. So this opens up the most important teaching, that there's a concept of bringing life, in a sense, even when the physical life is not there. How do you see life continuing? Okay, we're in this room, thank God, we should all live till forever, and we should all be healthy. Well, we are all alive. But many people will say, rightfully so, no one listens to me. So I go into a room, or my effect on them is as if I'm not here. Or to put it a little bit differently, I am dead. I'm fully alive and fully vibrant, but my influence on my children or on my friends or is zero. It's as if I'm not alive. If you turn it upside down and you act in a certain way, and someone says, why are you acting this way? You say, well, that's the way my mother taught me. Or you say, that's the way I remember this from one of my teachers. They're still having an influence over you. So again, the medical definition of life, I don't want to get into, but it's respiration, breathing, heartbeat, etc., brain waves. But on a more philosophical sense, what is life? Life can include the definition of being in a position where you have influence on others. You know where you could see this? You could see this without getting into the legal definition of an embryo, right? We have life, a woman is carrying a baby, or life inside of. What is the difference between the life that's developing internally to the life that now was revealed? There's one major difference. When it was inner, this child, baby, fetus, call it whatever you want, this existence only has meaning to the mother. It cannot influence anyone on the outside. And even as a mother, the Talmudic expression is, just like we have 10 fingers, some people have a sixth finger. It's an anomaly. So she has something foreign growing within her. When does that become a child? When it's outside. You know why? Because as soon as this child is born, you have the nurses, you have the doctors, it makes the woman into a mother, makes the male into a father, it changes. The moment it is born, already it is having an effect on others. a very profound effect. So all of us should open up ourselves to the idea we are alive, and if we are alive, that means we have the ability, the potential, and the obligation to influence something beyond my nose. So if I say I'm alive because my nose has grown, it's a really inferior form of life. Or I pick my nose, but it could be my waistline. Also, it's not, that doesn't prove you're alive. You understand that you don't? Okay. So that's Chayei Sarah, because everything that we're going to read in the Parsha is going to be connected to the influence of Sarah. There are, within this Parsha, we have some fundamental concepts. One fundamental concept will be the idea of how does one treat the dead. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but it's fascinating that the Torah begins by saying Sarah dies and her husband comes to cry over her and to eulogize her. And I think, something as basic as this is sometimes not appreciated. I know someone, actually my wife also knows this person, but I know someone who was very dedicated to her husband, and it was what they call a good marriage. And when he passed away, I did the funeral, whatever it is, the shiva, and then she went on a trip to London. So I asked her, maybe for the first 30 days, maybe it's not such a good idea. He said, no, I want to forget. My friends are telling me I have to live. You have to process. When the Torah tells us that Sarah was 127 years old, she's not a baby. It's true that in the time period of Abraham, 200 years was considered a full life. Not anymore, 800 years. But even so, 127 years is not a small life. And yet it makes it very clear. Abraham comes and he travels. Lispaid l'Sarah b'lev kaisar. So it is a proper thing to acknowledge a deep loss and to weep over it and to eulogize. That is a proper thing. The Rambam writes clearly that if someone loses a loved one of the 7 relatives, father, mother, brother, sister, husband, wife, child, those are the 7 that were obligated to mourn. If someone says, the will of God happened, that's it. This person has, I'm rephrasing the expression, has no heart. He's cruel. How can you not weep? How can you not long? Okay. So this is very important. It's actually a teaching. The question is for how long, how intense, that's another discussion. There's the day, there's the first 7 days, there's 30 days, there's 11 months, and so on. But just simply to say, I'm a deep believer, God is good, and if he took my loved one, I'm sure there was a good reason for it. Or for that matter, even again a flip. What happens, it should never happen, but what happens if a person is in a very bad state, where everyone is really expecting this, and it's a release, thank God they left instead of suffering or causing everyone else to suffer. There's still a mitzvah, which means it's a commandment. There's still a mitzvah to weep and to eulogize. No matter how logical it would be, But again, how intense and so on is something else.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So what would you say to the woman who went to London, whose spouse died?
I told her that I don't think it's a good idea. She said, I want to do it, and I wished her well. That's all.
So would you consider her not mourning in London? Or, she's not going to go into Buckingham Palace and go to a party?
No, she is. Her friends wanted to take her out. Mm-hmm. And the intention was 100% good.
Right, but wouldn't it be for her a type of mourning? Would you consider that a type of mourning?
It would be an unhealthy form of mourning.
Okay, why?
Because, I don't mind talking about it, but we're expanding the conversation. The reason why is because when you're living with someone for 20 years, 70 years, whatever it is, there, even whether or not you're on the best or the worst,
Right.
you've merged together. When suddenly that's taken away from you, you have to acknowledge first the loss, and then to look at it with unprejudicial eye, which is even in the worst there was good, and even in the good he wasn't a saint. He was just a good man, but he was far from, you know what I mean? And when you don't do that, that means somewhere along your line you have a little bit of a deficiency, which has to be dealt with. And I wouldn't say this on my own, but because I believe with heart and soul that the Torah and the Jewish law knows what's best for us, it's absolutely necessary to deal with it. Okay, I have a lot to say, but that's not important. I just wanted to show you that the first thing of the parsha is, it starts off that Sarah, who's dead, is alive. And the second thing is the way her husband acknowledges it. Okay.
But she's dead, but she's alive?
She's dead, but her influence never changes. Some people, when they die, God forbid, no one remembers them. But by the whole parsha, the whole story of Isaac, for example, I'll give one example. Isaac, Yitzchak is going to what? He's going to marry Rivka. So turn to page 121. Just for a moment. Turn to page 121. This is, I will discuss the story, but this is after the servant of Abraham brings back Rebecca, who's going to marry Isaac. Okay? So on page 121, verse 65, Rebecca says to the servant, "Who's the man in the field walking?" And the servant said, "He's my boss." So Rivka takes the veil and covers herself, and that becomes the scriptural, the biblical concept of veiling the bride. And then the servant tells Isaac all of the great miracles. But this is where it's beautiful. Read 67. And Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. He married Rebekah. She became his wife. He loved her, and Isaac was consoled after his mother. The story of Isaac is he is 40 years old. He is not a baby. Not only is he not a baby, but as a 40-year-old, he's clearly the next in line to be God's favorite, so to speak. And until he marries, he feels Sarah. He feels his mother's loss. Today, if a guy is 40 years old and he can't hold a job, you say, why? Because I don't want a job because my mother died 18 years ago. We say you need therapy. No, not because you're crazy, but there's something not fully developed or whatever it is. We have to figure this out because after 18 years, you should be able to deal with life. No, I can't. I'm paralyzed. Imagine Isaac has his father. He has all of the students. He himself is a teacher. But until he marries his wife, Rebecca, he cannot be consoled after his mother. So Sarah is alive. You understand? Until the end of the parsha, everything revolves around Sarah. So to put it in the vernacular, describe to me the girl you want to marry, someone who's like my mom. Now, a lot of people will not say that. A lot of people will not say that, but some will say it, and actually everyone deep down believes it. They don't say it. Yeah.
And looks like her too.
They wouldn't say they want to be someone like your mom until they're older.
Not necessarily. I mean, what you call it? If you ask siblings, who do you want to marry? The answer is people that are like my sister. Some of them will say that if they have a good relationship, yeah. But deep down, the mother figure is always there. So it would be like this: who do you want to marry? Someone who's not like my mother. Again, but the model of femininity and the model of a spouse is going to be the mother. Okay, so in Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, Yitzchak was, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Yitzchak was missing the holiness, the comfort, the pillar of strength, and basically the servant of God that he saw in his mother. So though he had a great father, Abraham, and again, according to the Midrash, there was many students, until he found someone like his mother, he was not consoled. Okay. So I'm going to repeat again. We start off with that we have a parsha which talks about the death of Sarah, and Abraham does not go into seclusion. He continues his life, marries, and has more children. Why? Because he's fulfilling his mission to bring life, godly life, to this world. The second main point that I brought out is that the name of the parsha is the life of Sarah in the present, though the parsha doesn't really talk about what she was doing. She was buried on verse number 2. But the idea is that the influence of Sarah continued throughout not only her lifetime, but the lifetime of her children, so it's called Chayei Sarah. The third point I started to talk, but I don't want to talk too much about it, is that the fact that Avram comes to eulogize and weep over his wife is teaching us this is proper. To skip that step is not healthy, nor is it divine. It's interesting, by the way, for us Hasidim, we always looked at our Rebbe as the mentor and the teacher. When the Rebbe lost his, the word lost is also not correct, but when the Rebbe's wife went to heaven, he spoke to people. He said, even though I know the law, which is after 30 days, he said, but I can't get to myself. And we're talking about a saint, a true leader, a true saint, that I can't get to myself. So there is something which is very important of Lisbeth L'Serv of Kaisen. Another very important, and I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on it, not because it's connected to you in particular, but you should know this for others as well. How does the effect of, let's put it point blank, how is Sarah disposed of?
Well, she's buried.
She's buried. Burial in the ground this is not the first place, but because it already in Genesis, the first parsha, we're told the verse, you come from earth, you will return to earth. But the first description of burial is found in this week's parsha, and there's many halachot that come from it. I'll give one example only, and that is that Avraham is looking for a burial plot for his wife. The story, when you read it, there's a fellow who owns a plot of land, and he says to Abraham, I'll give it to you for free because you're a very respected person, and I don't want to take any money from you. And he insists. And the guy says, well, we're friends. What's 400 silver shekels between us? Immediately, Abraham pays for it. Okay. There are many ideas behind it, but what's the first law that hits you? A burial plot should be bought, not given. Not given. Even there are many stories. One of them I know from my own Rebbe, who paid for the burial of his teacher. And he told the family, but I'm going to let you pay $10. It was probably $16,000. So you could say, and so you'll have a share in the burial. Why is that important? I really don't know why it's so important. But basically, we learned that one should buy a burial plot. It should not be given as a gift.
For himself or for his relatives?
For whoever needs. For whoever needs. By the way, and I say this with a big smile, writing a will and buying a burial plot is not only is it not bad karma, it's very good karma. It's not like oy vey, I'm going to buy a burial plot. That means like I'm setting myself up for something terrible. It's not like that. And the way what you do is you make a will and then you say l'chaim. Yeah, but this is okay. How early is a separate discussion? Okay.
My
Yeah.
question, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
Okay.
I bought for myself a grave, okay, and gave children the documents.
Right.
So
That's good.
we still need to repay me $10, so it will.
No. If you bought it, so it's your resting place.
Yeah, but my children are not supposed to share when
No,
we will bury me.
no.
It's already bought.
It's already bought. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. So again, it's interesting. It's a narrative. It's a story, but just from the story, we learn many things. Why is burial though? Not only that, but from the storyline, he wants a respected place. Me and you know from our tradition that the burial place of Sarah is called what? Ma'aras. Anyone know the end of it? Ma'aras HaMachpelah. It's in Hebron today. And that's a very sacred place. Some say it's the holiest place, even more than the Western Wall. Others say no, the Western Wall is the holiest place, but the second holiest place is in Hebron, Hebron or Hebron. In Hebron, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah, and of course Adam and Eve, or Adam and Chava, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov. That's where they're buried. So it is a sacred place. Avraham Avinu knew that this is, in a sense, like a funnel that connects heaven to earth. Just to wander off, according to the Zohar, all prayers that we mention wherever we might be, of course, it's like the World Wide Web. It's in the stratosphere. All prayers go to the cave of Machpelah, and from there, either directly to the heavenly throne, or it goes to the Western Wall, and from there. And this is something because even in the Shemona Esrei, which I know all of you, the prayer we stay standing up, actually begins with the patriarchs. It ends with Magen Avraham. We have you resurrect the dead, that's Yitzchak, and Akel HaKodesh is Yaakov. Okay. So it's important to have a respectful place. Let me point out something very interesting, which is actually happening today. We all know the Trump peace plan. I'm not going to get into politics. I just want to point out one thing. Israel said like this: unless we get back live hostages and bones of hostages, we're not going to go any further. I want to ask you just a simple question. Does that make sense? Why should the land of Israel, the people of Israel, care so much that some deceased Jew is not buried or not buried in Israel? It's really not understandable. It's really not understandable. And yet, in front of our eyes, in the year 2025, and this is something that even the non-religious element of Israel, they call them the lefties, whatever it is, I'm not going to label, but even those that are not traditional somehow went along with this. Yes, we need the bodies because there's deep down within the Jewish tradition, starting from Abraham, a Jewish body has to be buried in the ground. Period. There's no discussion about it. And if a person puts down in their will, I want a cremation, I really want a cremation, I insist on a cremation and everything else, the Jewish law says that after death, we do not listen, and he's buried. For the family that I have to deal with occasionally, and they say, well, I can't go against his wishes. I don't really say this, but I'll tell it to you. You say, look, if you believe that he died, it's not going to make a difference to him. If you bury him and you don't burn him, if you feel what? That he is in some way going to be insulted, that means you're accepting that he has what we call a neshama, a soul. If that's the case, I could tell you with the full authority of 4,000 years of Jewish tradition, the soul wants to be buried with the body and not burnt in the body. Now, just think how, in a sense, how irrelevant it is what he wanted. If you leave out the soul, what's the difference what he wanted? Is he going to come back and talk to you? Is he going to know what that you didn't do what he wanted? No, I want to respect his wishes. He's not alive. But if you do want to respect his wishes, that means you consider some consciousness there. Some form of divine energy is there. If that is something that's meaningful to you, then without a doubt, burning a body is a travesty. It's a very big sin and should never be tolerated. So again, why do we do burial in the ground? Because the Torah says so, period. But I'm just pointing out that today we actually see a war was they were either going to go to war or not go to war, and a partial decision was, are we going to get back a body? So clearly, even today, for people who have no Jewish anything, have to say, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And it's not only that, it's not only a body, they do all kinds. You didn't give us the right body. You gave us an error body. So what? If it's just for show, what's the difference? It's not for show. It's for the completion of the cycle of life. So it's really, really important that we know this. And that's why I said, not jokingly, but more like as a pushback, I can't go against my mom's wishes or what do you mean you can't go against her wishes? First of all, she did not know. Or she thought that maybe you'll save a couple $1,000, and that's not going to be good in any case. But most of all, what do you mean she's going to be insulted? You claim that you could destroy the body. There's nothing there. So she's not going to be insulted. Oh, yes, she will. Aha. So there is an acknowledgement that there's going to be some form of divine energy or cosmic energy that's there. If that's the case, listen to the experts on cosmic divine energy. It's not from a biologist. It's from a Kabbalist or a saint. Yeah, you want to say something? Okay. So we have the idea of burial in the ground, also from this week's Parsha. What?
You said earlier that the influence of Sarah lived.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So how does that differ from the person saying, I can't go against it, but some wishes? So what's the...
Because when we talk about the influence of Sarah Liz, we're talking about the divine soul. Mm-hmm. In contrast to a physical something. Again, that we have a body called guf, body, and we have something called neshama, the breath of God. When we talk about Sarah lives, or for that matter, any great person, even a family member, we're talking about a divine continuation. In brackets, everyone mentally do brackets. Was a soul born when the baby was born? No. The soul existed before, and it will exist after. You understand? And that's why there's no such thing as really life after death. It's really life after life, or a continuum of life. There was a neshama in heaven. The neshama was put into a specific body to continue its life cycle to accomplish something. And when that something was accomplished, the neshama continues life.
So
Many of the neshamas will come down again and again,
so you're
each time.
The neshama could be in someone else then?
We're really wandering off. Let me just say one example for you without me going further, okay? If you take a beam of light and you go through a crystal, what are you going to see? You're going to see 7 colors, okay? Now, the light is one, but when it goes through the crystal, you're going to see different spectrums of light. We have a neshama, which is one. That one neshama is going to be completely unique in my body, the way, in contrast to the way it was in a previous body, and in contrast to the way it might come into another body.
Same neshama.
Same neshama, and yet it's completely different. One could even bring this down further, like almost like in more of a infantile way. Don't look at light, look at your children. They all come from the same sperm and the same egg, and look how different they are. But they all share the same DNA, I think. I'm not sure all the details. But you understand, they're so different, and the way you treat one and the way the one thinks, and the destiny of one kid will be a horse thief, and the other one is going to be a great healer. But they're all from the same. So every neshama is the neshama that comes down. It's not like some people liken it to some Buddhist or Hinduist idea of reincarnation. For them, it's more like a yo-yo, up, down, and then when somehow the cycle is broken, then it's freed. It's much more logical and truthful to say the neshama has within it 613 powers corresponding to the mitzvos. And in each of its lifetime on earth, one of those powers will become revealed. Enough for now. If we have another class, we'll get deeper into it, but enough for now.
Rabbi, don't they say that you should listen to what your parents tell you to do, but not if it goes against Torah?
And?
Correct.
And so your parents may say,
She's
I want to
strengthening.
be cremated.
Right.
But you have to go by Torah, and it's probably better for them too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. We also have an amazing dialogue between Abraham and the people who he is negotiating with.
Yeah, that is a good dialogue.
You have to remember, here's Abraham. His wife, so to speak, is in front of him. He's looking for a burial place, and he knows instinctively or prophetically that the field of Ephron is the suitable place. He doesn't want to take it by force, which we'll discuss after I finish my thought. He wants to take it as a gentleman. If you read a little bit, I'm going to skip a little bit. It's on page 107, verse 4. He says to the people of Ches, I'm not part of your group. I'm an alien. I'm a stranger, but I'm also a resident. It's like I'm a legal I'm a legal immigrant. Okay, I need to bury my dead. And they answer, "Oh, here, my lord, you're a prince of God. Take whatever you want." And Abraham rose up and bowed down to the children, and he said, "If you really want to honor me, let me pay full price." Now, Ephron, verse 10, comes and says, "No, my lord," verse 11 on page 109, "it's yours." And verse 12, Abraham bows down to the member of the council. What strikes me, I didn't really see this written, but it seems quite obvious. Most of us, when we're confronting a tragedy, we lose our composure. We lose our composure. We're not respectful enough, and we're not logical enough. It's like that. That's why the worst time, incidentally, to get a burial plot is when it's happening in real life. The same thing about doctors or whatever it might be. You have to be composed. So if a person walks into shul, for example, right, and he pushes some people, I'll tell you a story from Reader's Digest from maybe 35 years ago. And it was imprinted in the book of the seven principles to live by what's his name? Cowie. Anyway, he has this following story. He has
Stephen Covey.
what?
Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey, yeah. He has
Habits of highly successful
The
people.
seven-
he has like 4 books. And it's interesting, next to his last book, he says, my first books are not 100% accurate. It doesn't work all the time yet. Because in the first books, he emphasizes how you should make a day planner. And then in his third book, he writes, actually, the day plan is not always so good because it stifles creativity. It's funny. Anyway, but not important.
Need to journey and learn.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's the story. Here's the story that he told. He said he was on a subway. Either it happened with him or he made it up. He was on a subway in New York City, and a stop. They open up the doors. In comes a guy with 2 children. The guy sits by the window and he's just gazing out pensively. And the kids they're bored. They sit by him, and then they start running around, and they're looking out the window, and basically they're really disturbing everyone else. And there's one fellow who's really slowly getting enraged. Like, why doesn't he do something? I mean, these kids are what? It's ownerless. All of us paid to sit. Anyway, finally, he couldn't hold himself back. And he goes over to the guy and he says, excuse me, you're the father of these children? Yes. Don't you see what they're doing? And he goes like that. Oh, I didn't realize it. We just came from the hospital. Their mother passed away. And I wasn't paying attention. I'm thinking and then suddenly everything changes. The guy's heart melts. What a tragedy, how sad. I don't know if he asked, can I help, whatever. But it's understandable. It's understandable. So hypothetically, someone comes into Sinai and says, can I speak to Mr. Smith? No, he's in a meeting. And the person says, I have to speak to him now. They understand this person is under a lot of stress. This person is dealing with something that's heartbreaking. They could put up with it. They'll say, excuse me, I'll try to do it, and so on. Look at Avraham Avinu. He talks to them respectfully. He bows down. It's like the control that he has on his emotions is really something remarkable, especially when it's preceded by he came to Sarah, lispod l'Sarah, to eulogize her, v'liv kaisa, and to cry over her. So clearly he's coming in an emotional state. That's what it says. You can't cry if he's not a liar. Obviously, he's going to feel this, and yet when it comes to speaking to others, he doesn't lose it. He bows down to them. He shows them respect, and it's always they want to give him something, and the way he firmly refuses, but in the most respectful way. I'm just saying, read it. It's something to learn from, something to be inspired about. I want to deal with something which is crucial over here. Again, let's look in the Hebrew and in the English, okay? So on page 106 in the Hebrew, 107 in the English, Avram gets up, he sees his wife, and somehow he's like looking at her, and then he gets up and he says, Ger v'toshav anochi imachem. I'm a stranger. I'm not from over here. I'm out of town, basically. V'toshav, but I reside here. Tenu li achuzos keve imachem. Give me a parcel of land, a burial site, and I ekbera mesi milfanei, and I want to bury my dead. So we'll read another couple of lines, but this is the verse primarily that I want to talk about. So Vayanu b'nei Ches Avram. So the children respond to him. Children, meaning the inhabitants, say, Shmeinu Adoni. Look, you're a lord. Nesi Elokim ato b'sechenu. I mean, your reputation. You're a holy guy, and you're like a prince. Whatever you want, take. B'mivcha k'v'neinu k'veres meisecha. Take what you want. No one will hold back. Ishmi menesker lo yichlem mechamik v'meisecha. Now, was this a generous offer? Yeah, very generous offer, and it was also a very, and it was couched in a very respectful way. You're a prince amongst us, and in a sense, it would be an honor. Why does Avram say no?
Is there such a thing as documentation or a title deed?
Yeah, there is.
So do we still have the title deed?
The Torah is the title deed, but but by the way, you're smiling when you say it, but that's actually discussed, that the title deed to the Temple Mount, to the city of Jericho and to the Maras Machpelah, the title deed is the Bible itself. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, why did he say no? He's getting what he wants, right? He wants this very special place. Why does he say no? So, of course, before, if you recalled 15 minutes ago, I said from here we learn you should buy it. But it's not really answering this particular aspect of the question. Because he could have donated, oh, you were so nice to me, I'm going to build a playground. You know what I mean? No, I want to buy this area. Why does he want to buy the field? So what we see over here is the beginning of the conquest of Israel. God promised Abraham the land of Israel. In those days, it was called Eretz Canaan. Now, we're already holding by the fifth portion, right? We have Bereshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayeh. This is the fifth portion. God gives Abraham, he said, the land is going to be yours. And Avram is traveling to the east, to the north, to the south. And it's repeated 3 times, actually 4 times, in the covenant that Hashem makes with Abraham. And yet, he has nothing. It's like I tell you, don't worry, next door will be yours. I promise you. You can even walk in. We'll walk in, walk out. In the meantime, no, where's the deed? Yeah, he has nothing of Israel. So the first place where he actually has Israel that belongs to him is this particular thing. He understood B'nai Ches were going to give it to him as a gift. So who owns this area? Ches. But they allowed a very special man a little parcel of land. But this land does not belong to him, it belongs to us. But he has a long-term lease, allowing him to do that. Avraham Avinu said, no. The very fact that now I need physical land, I want to make it very clear that it's mine. So what B'nai Ches was willing to give him was, you could come into my house and do whatever you want in that corner, but it's my house. In this case, he's conquering land, which opens up like a stream that goes in many different directions. I'll share with you one direction. Could you imagine the land of Israel being the first thing to buy in the land of Israel is a burial place?
What is the meaning of that?
Yeah.
Why not the first thing you buy is a temple or
good, or an orchard. Buy an orchard. Buy a house.
Or a temple because of the
beachfront
holy
property.
What?
Beachfront property. Beachfront property.
Yeah. Gaza would be good.
Yeah.
And yet, what does he do? It's a rocky area, Chevra, by the way. But so here's one of the streams. This already is going to tell us that Israel will be conquered and possessed by Jews. Will not be easy. It will not be easy. And it actually says that there are 3 things which come with suffering, and one of them is the land of Israel. So that's just an interesting concept.
What else would come with suffering?
Me. Yes, Sarah. Again, the best thing to say is not to say the 3, so you can always say, I knew it's going to be difficult, but you, the Talmud said. Okay, anyway, 3 things were given with suffering. Okay, so this is one idea. The flip side of this is very interesting. It's a beautiful midrash, but I'm going to say it in my words. Father and a son are traveling on a long distance, and they're looking forward to get to a special place. Okay, they want to go to Disneyland. And they're traveling day after day and week after week, and the kid keeps on saying, when are we getting there? We're getting there. How close? It's not yet close. Until finally, they come to a place where there's a cemetery. And there's a cemetery, the father smiles, says, we're getting there close. Because they would never bury the dead in the city, but they would bury the dead outside of the city, not too far away. You don't want to walk 3 miles or 10 miles. So in a sense, seeing the cemetery, which is not a pleasant place to encounter, also tells you that there's a city that precedes it.
Is that a tradition to keep the burial place outside the city?
That's practical. It's very practical. The only place where it's Jewish law is in the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem and any other walled city is forbidden to have a cemetery within the walls. But it's just simply practical in most places. We're not talking today. You understand? Today is different. You have planing, all that stuff. But in most places, the cemetery would always be out of the city or out of the village in order to make sure that there's enough room for living people. But it's interesting. If that's the case, you will first see the cemetery, but that will give you hope and anticipation that I will see the city as well. Okay, in any case, so go back and you tell me what you think it means. Verse 4. I hate the word alien because I think of Martians. It means I am a stranger. Alien means over here. I am a stranger and a resident. What does that mean? What is Avram trying to tell the people?
That he's not from the tribe that is.
So they know that. They have dark skin and he has lighter skin. They have slanted eyes. It's clear that he's not from them. He's talking to B'nai Ches.
So he says, I'm a stranger and what?
And a resident.
So I'm different from you, but I live here.
So what's he saying? In other words, what is the message? He almost seems to be contradicting himself. If he says, I'm living here, so then I'm not a stranger. I have rights like you, so I'm a naturalized citizen, but I did it legally, so I'm an American, just like you are an American.
He's a resident alien, he's not a naturalized citizen.
Okay. If you say I am a stranger amongst you, so then on the contrary, I need your permission, and if you want to give me a gift, that's really very nice, but I can't be both at the same time. So Rashi gives us an amazing insight, and from this insight, there's a lot we could talk about. The insight is as follows. Avraham Avinu says to these people, the God of Abraham promised me this land. So you're the strangers. I'm the owner. Now, I could physically fight you. And we already know that Avram was a great general. We already had the story. With 318 soldiers, he vanquishes 4 kings who are strong enough to capture Lot and the Sodom and so on. I could fight you, but I'd rather not. So consider me a stranger and let's do a transaction. But if you're not going to do that transaction, I want to let you know that I live here. I'm not an alien. I'm not a stranger. You could call it diplomacy, where he's saying something that could be interpreted in more than one way. He's coming and he says, I need this land. I am a stranger amongst you and I dwell here. If you want, I will take it with money and we'll do a transaction because after all, I'm a stranger. But otherwise, I want to let you know it's mine. And these are the words of Rashi. When you think about it, when you think about it, I don't want to get into so much today, right? But today, could you imagine if the people of Israel would say to all of the non-Jewish people living in the country, until the Mashiach comes, we're tolerating you. As long as you keep the laws, you're law-abiding, you are guests in a Jewish nation, in a Jewish homeland. But if you're not going to consider yourself a guest, then I want to let you know that the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel based on the God of Israel, and we're going to kick you out, plain and simple. In many, many ways, look, I'm not a diplomat and I'm not sophisticated enough to know how to translate the words of Avram to today. But I get it, that this has to be the way Israel will present itself to the world. Ger v'toshav, not I am a stranger, you're the stranger, but toshav, because it's not yet messianic times. The temple hasn't been built, we'll tolerate you nicely. But otherwise, that would have solved the problem before it became a problem.
But there were forces that were murdering Arabs that would sell to Jews.
Again, I told you I don't want to get into. I'm just saying
I mean,
we have something that was said 4,000 years ago,
Right, let's do it.
and I believe that it's an eternal lesson. There's another way to look at it, and that is when we read it, we have to see ourselves in America as resident aliens. Sadly, over time, what happened in New York, which is a little bit distressing to say the least, and so on. We have to remember that this is a sojourn. If we forget that we're strangers, the good American will remind us that we're strangers. So Ger V'Toshav is not only Avraham Avinu speaking, it's everywhere. Wherever we are, first and foremost, I'm a stranger in this land. Toshav, I love this land as well, I dwell in this land, and so on. It's very interesting. Again, I don't like mentioning names that often, so just, by the way, Dershowitz, who was from Harvard, he's a Gracer, big shot today. And today he's a big spokesman for Israel's right to exist. And 2 weeks ago, he made a big announcement, I'm going away from the Democrat Party. Big spiel to me. Okay. But anyway, he wrote a book called Chutzpah. Anyone read that book? The theme of his book is, we are Americans. Well, we don't have to be schnorrers. We have to have chutzpah to demand the rights, not as Jews, but as Americans. And he was
Which rights was he speaking of?
What?
The same rights the blacks.
In other words, general, the way a Jew looks at himself today is second-class citizen. We're not second-class citizens. We're first-class citizens. Since then, he could bite those words. He changed from a liberal lawyer who would defend a Nazi to someone who has a very different attitude today, realizing what they would call the latent anti-Semitism. Even though he was a big shot professor in Harvard. Because take a look what Harvard did to open murders. Okay. The point I'm saying is, Ger V'Teshuv is an important thing. I am an American citizen. July 4th by me is a very important day, but I'm a Jew. So at all times, I have to be aware I'm a guest. Once we forget that, the galut, the exile, and the spiritual confusion becomes so much stronger. In what way am I a stranger? So to borrow some thoughts, some language from Rabbi Soloveitchik, blessed memory. I am a resident. Let's do business together. I'll do AI with you. I'll invest with you. I'll march with you to make sure that there's no drug pushers in our neighborhood, But I'll always be a stranger to you because you will never understand my way of life. Shabbos, kosher, all of the details of between men and women, there's no way a non-Jew can understand that, which is fine. But you have to be conscious of that. You have to very much be conscious of that as we are well adjusted, and hopefully, and with God's help, until the coming of Mashiach, we will always be respected as good American citizens. We have to know that the non-Jew cannot understand us because we're fundamentally different in the way we think, in the way we feel, and what we do. So everyone understands religion. Religion, there's Buddhist, and there's Muslim, and there's Christian, and there are Jews, and they cannot understand Yiddishkeit.
I feel like a second-class citizen.
If you feel like
Are we? Because there are all these different religions in America, and everyone's supposed to be really American, even though we know only the WASPs are real Americans. But are we real American? Are we citizens or not?
we are citizens, but people look at Jews somewhat different. Somewhat different.
Everywhere, not only in Israel.
Well, the best possible place for a Jew to live, ostensibly, would be America.
Yes.
And in spite of the goodness and the generosity and the kindness of American people, by and large, it's a nation of immigrants. And there's a level playing field in most regards. If you do well in business, then you're respected as a millionaire. If you do well in technology, you're respected. You know what I mean? On every level, America comes out ahead in terms of respecting the individual. With all of that, Jews are always looked at completely different. And take a look, okay, the class is officially over. I have closing words. But just look what happened with through October 7th. It's nothing new, but it came to the forefront. Here we are, we're marching, for civil rights in the 60s, and here we are, Black Lives Matter, and then suddenly you people are genocidal. You people, I never visited Israel. I'm an American citizen. 4 generations. No, it's you people. I'll tell you what happened to me 3 weeks ago. I was at the farmer's market, and a fellow comes over, and he says, yes, you're over here. Why? I said, it's a free speech zone. So he said, well, if that's the case, I'm standing in the free speech zone. Can I tell you something? I said, it's free speech. He tells me, this is before the ceasefire. He says, I used to have a lot of sympathy for the Jewish people, but not anymore. The way you people, I don't know if he said you people or you Israelis, I don't remember the exact word, but the way you guys are acting, I have no more sympathy. So I told him spontaneously, I said, we don't need your sympathy. So he was taken aback a little bit, said, really? I said, what I want is people to recognize the truth. And he walked away. He didn't know what to say. It was a good response, but believe me, I did not plan it. I just blurted it out. But you understand, but it's an amazing thing. I'm living in San Francisco. You understand, people are walking with all kinds of different dress. It was a nice day. A lot of people didn't have dress. And everyone is doing their thing. And you people, it's like, what do you mean, you people? What do you know about my people? So you should know, with all of the goodness of America, and we're strangers. We're strangers here, even in terms of citizenship, and more important is, we're strangers because it's not possible to understand the way a Jew thinks and feels. Especially, and the more traditional and the more observant you are, the more we get to the level of, I respect your way of life, though I have no idea of what you're doing and why. But I see that strength. To end with like a walk away, the walk away is the main part of this week's parsha is the shidduch, the bringing together of Yitzchak and Rivka. This is there's enough to talk for like 12 classes and more. But the point I want to say is, if you just take a look at what was the great quality of Rivka, you see a tremendous amount of kindness. But kindness together with an iron resolve. So if you ever had to see 2 dissimilar people, it would be Isaac and Rebekah. No one in their right mind would have ever thought, this is a shidduch. Let me explain why. Yitzchak has 2 parents which are super Jews. They could be Superman and super lady. They're holy, holy, holy. He's born as a miracle. He has a covenant with God when he's a baby. He only sees roses. He doesn't see any thorns. Okay. And what's his highlight? His highlight is, God, my physical life, it means nothing to me. You want me? Take me. Removed from physicality to the extreme of, he became a living sacrifice, a living korban. And when there's a drought in the land, he's thinking of going to Egypt like his father, but God tells them, no, you're holy. You can't leave this land. So he goes to the land of the Philistines, which is Gaza. It's still part of Israel. Now look at Rebekah. She has a father who has the reputation of being completely immoral. Besuel actually means the one that deflowers the virgin. Yeah, he was chicken a guy. And then he would take liberties with women. He was a thief, a no goodnik. She has a brother, Laban, who's a murderer, an idolater, a liar, a swindler. Okay. And she grows up in that area. So what are the chances? You understand? What are the chances of a guy growing up in Bnei Brak to marry a girl like Madonna? It just won't happen. It just doesn't happen. The environments are so separate. And yet, the expression is, Rivka is like a rose who grows amongst the thorns. And I saw a beautiful comment. I don't know if this is true. We know many roses have a beautiful fragrance. When you rub it, more fragrance comes out. So this holy rabbi pointed out she was a rose growing amongst the thorns, and her fragrance kept on getting better and better. So this idea of a shidduch, of two different worlds, so to speak, coming together, what connected them? Kindness. Kindness. When she gives a stranger some water, that is the connection between that world and this world. It's almost a little bit differently. That reveals the flower that was amongst the thorns. Any one of us that wants to have, you want to be popular, be kind. You want to be influential, be kind. You want to have a good spouse, be kind. You want to be a good neighbor, be kind. It works for all people at all times. I want to say thank you for coming, and I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Be kind to them.
No,
Not with the shot.
right.
You just give me
Regular
the
vibe,
idea.
not with evil people.
I told Sarah that I'm mourning the passing away of my very close friends and family. I grew up with a very famous Israeli artist, Sashok, and you can maybe someday hear his name. And I never could forgive him. He lived with my friend and his wife for almost 60 years, and suddenly she passed away 4 years ago. Suddenly he married.
I can have conflict with my spouse.
I couldn't forgive
So
him.
then
And
what?
now you explain it.
No, you have to live and bring life.
The only way you'll end up getting along is if I'm gonna be kind and forgiving.
So many
But
people
now I don't
think
wanna go and kill him or
that
capture
if
him
I
and imprison him.
remarry or something like that,
Well, we have
I'm
conflict.
being disloyal. But it's not that. The Rebbe would often say
Being kind all
to
the time.
the people,
Get you into
he said it to a woman, God forbid, who lost her husband or her husband. He said, because you were married, ultimately each one wanted the benefit of the others. I want the benefit of my spouse. I want her to be healthy. I want her to be happy, even if I don't get along with her.
Regular, normal
If you're married, I want the best for her. She
Going
wants the best for
beyond and
me.
being kind.
When one of the spouses is in heaven and they see they see their husband or their wife lost life, they get very upset. If I saw you like this when I was alive, I try to cheer you up. Now that I'm not there, do I want you to be depressed? I want you to continue. That will bring me joy. What we had. That's no one can take that away. No one can take that away. But for the future, I don't want to be the cause of your misfortune. The Rebbe would say the same thing to the
I thought I
children.
was gonna take.
After a year,
That'll be next.
what do you mean you're depressed? Mom, dad died. If you walked in during the year and your mother says, well, how come I don't see a smile? Your dad says, please come on, Yankala, you're hurting me when you're sad. How can I help you? So now he's in heaven. He surely wants you to be happy. So you're going to use it as an excuse. So again, it takes a lot of strength to absorb that, but it's truthful. It is truthful. Some people say, oh, my mother, Allah Hashem, passed away. My father was still in good health, and some of the people in this congregation, they were delicate. They said, Rabbi, maybe you should look someone that will make tea for you. And he said, no, I don't want, that's it. But the truth of the matter is, people should have a partner in life as much as possible. So I started off on a very spiritual level. So you have the Yud and the Hey. But there's also, just on a practical level, going home and being alone is not helpful. So if you have a lot of family, sometimes it could work. You visit one child sends over the kids, but a lot of us don't have that. So having a companion, even if you don't do much together, just knowing that your house has someone there is a very reassuring thing. I hope with Hashem's help we'll be together forever, you know what I mean? So I'm not anticipating, but as a rabbi, I can tell you this is the truth. The truth is, it's not disloyal. On the contrary, it's actually best for you and for the departed.
And regarding this, I don't want to take your time because I understand you're busy, but today I'm doing broadcasting.
Today what?
Today I'm doing broadcasting in the evening. I'm doing broadcasting, and I will be talking about the most successful KGB projects, which practically America lost the Cold War, and both of them are anti-Semitic. First one, this is creation of Palestinian nation, 1964, and the second, the whole idea of building hatred for Jews, even there when people have no idea who they are. You see, the whole is propaganda. It's tremendous project, and it was paid by
Okay, it's enjoy the broadcast and be successful.
Yeah, thank you so much. But it's like finally we succeeded. But it's interesting. But thank you so much.
Everything can change in a moment. I said life could change in a moment. Destinies could change in a moment. You know what I mean? There's nothing succeeded so far.
Yeah, but majority of people usually it's only one thing.
No, I was gonna make that.
You can just change them with propaganda sources. In
Western kosher.
if I would have all those propaganda, I could make people believe that aliens from Mars already landed, and they totally.
They are here. You got problems. Let's go get you. Are you denying the truth?
And I
live on this.
in my swimsuit, under my clothes.
So today is Tuesday.
So I called him, I said,
See how Hashem closed the swimming pool out better and say just because he
yeah,
wanted you to be
make the
thankful.
glass better.
Study each day a part of it. Yes, but the Torah reading is always that.
Now we're good.
I just think this is the beginning of the
You don't know what you like that you want to wish.
We said
We all don't. I all don't. I just know that it's very hard. One day we're going to be.
That's what I said.
One day it's going to be added and we're going to say, real life, I do.
Oh, yeah.
That's that. He's done
I'm sure I like pulling it
his big
out.
favorite is I cried, 6 million Jews died, and I cried for October 3, so many people. Not anymore, because you're
Now, and now our 23rd is just, it's horrible.
He said
To get out there is just, so.
when it comes to eulogize the Jews,
Ex-Mossad guy,
the guy
he was a,
I don't think
and
these
that
things
makes
are
a
super
beautiful
really
eulogy on that Jews. They don't deal well with life Jews.
yeah.
The one more,
Rich
when they were
Orthodox
talking
of the
about
world.
we are American citizens,
Yeah.
what I mean,
Stay.
like we lived
It's
in,
your
no, I
personal
understand,
stay.
not there. When we lived in our country,
Air Force.
we were thinking that we are,
But there's a lot of things to do
Yeah.
we
walking.
didn't understand it,
That's
but
the
yes.
point. And there's some
No,
people
no.
don't understand how
Is it
much
China?
you can
No,
do.
that.
You just don't get how much you can do.
Actually, it's very good article.
I
It's
used to
like-
Feel good? Only
Friends.
good news. I said feel good and only good news.
Their citizens,
All around.
yes, we see it, and
So
friends,
you're gonna take the boats?
what seems there, real good job.
Yeah, when I was
And I was amazed how it was there.
Yeah, part one out.
today,
5 minutes late.
Thank you very much. See how
So
much
we were
it
getting.
came? Not good, so I didn't.
So he just wrote.
You said, it says that you can be here in person or also. I didn't want to.
The light.
Yeah.
So getting out of the house is also very
Yeah.
healthy. You meet people, you know.
Yes, and usually half of the day I eat salads, but today I decided to cut salad and go after this.
Exactly. And besides, you can't eat soup through Zoom.
Very interesting about the burial, I wanted to be cremated, my parents were cremated. Stan wants to be cremated.
No.
His mother was
No.
buried. I know, I have to work on it, because I don't, we don't have any burial plots or anything.
You should think, I hope you stay, you know what I mean, because it's an academic thing. If you wait a minute, I could give you a little book to read
I'm
about
still
it.
reading your Hasidic book, I've got 3 chapters.
No, but this is about cremation or burial.
Okay, I don't like the idea of being individual.
Again,
But I'm dead, so who cares?
so who cares? So the answer is your soul will feel it. If your soul will feel it, then you follow what the Torah says, because the Torah deals with the soul, not only the body.
Okay, well, I'm.
I don't know why if in your imagination,
I know.
that burning the body is not painful or ugly. It is painful and ugly. In contrast to being put into the ground and saying to God, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, we would bury his mom in the ground with a pine box and a wood box thing.
A wood box, not pine. Actually,
No,
we
it
wanted
had to be
to.
wood. It was,
We
it
wanted
was
to-
wood, it was from Sinai, we bought it from
Yeah, so we
Sinai.
would want actually no lining. We would want something that decays as soon as possible.
Don't you wrap the body in something?
In
You wash
shrouds.
the body?
They wash the body.
And then you.
And then they put on like a white clothing, very simple, there's nothing fancy about it. And then for men, they try to put a talus over them,
Right,
sometimes
you
they
should be
do,
buried with
some,
your chalice.
whatever it is, yeah. But you have to look at it this way. Don't look at the body decaying, look at it, everything grows
We've
from
gotta
the
have
ground.
a water.
True,
You understand? So we're talking about if there's a continuation of life, this is the most hospitable way for the continuation of life. It should not, I hate saying it because so many people are mixed up, but cremation is not only disrespectful, but it actually hinders life after life. Because the soul is somehow meshed with the body, and when it's burned, it's like saying, I'm trash. Anyway.
Anyway, it was very interesting. I was in Prague 10, 12 years ago. And we were in the.
Is this yours?
No.
Okay.
We were in the old cemetery, the old synagogue,
Right.
and it's supposed to be the oldest synagogue. And what they did is they buried one on top of the other. But it started underground,
Right.
and then there was no. And so they buried the bodies
Right.
on top. They were sometimes 8 to 10 deep.
But you know something, they have that in Israel as well.
Do they?
They have that not everywhere, but they have it in some places where you actually take an elevator down. They were just simply levels.
Yeah.
But as long as it's in the ground, halakhically, it's considered okay.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing as taking ashes, putting them means
No,
nothing.
no, throwing them in the ocean means nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, get your book. If you find your book for.
You wanna wait 1 minute? If I find it, I'll give it to you.
There was struggle, there was plenty of struggle, like, but not like in the beginning, the beginning was like, why did you do this to me? God, how did you do this to me? Why me? That's how he started. But after that, he didn't, maybe there was some time he was
It's not like she got it.
no, I can't, Hashem help me.
Well, this Mossad shrink says that there are 3 stages to being a Catholic, and the first is the hardest, and that is the
I'm
initial
sure you've
shock
seen all the great museums
of
in there.
this was my life, and now this is my life.
So,
But
would you
as
have made anything had you not done that?
Because they accept. So this guy says, his best friend that he was with for a very long time was released after 30 days. And that was a very challenging.
When I was
Oh.
traveling.
It was like, why?
I went to the.
Not that I wasn't happy, like he says, I was thrilled that he was going.
Knocked me out.
Like,
what knocked me out.
what about me?
Right.
He was-
Wasn't that great? I think absolutely much better.
And there was one.
And as
Dina, thank you for coming.
To that.
Oh, okay, I thought you were walking out the door. No,
Dorsey is wonderful.
enjoy enjoy your drink, please, please.
The Jeu de Paume, actually, I'm reading this book now about,
Jeu de Paume.
yeah, about.
Thank you.
And there's something
much.
orange as well.
Yeah, but.
Okay.
Well,
Take your time, but I do want to back.
No, I have another one I'm just about to return to that you love.
Yeah, okay, fine.
It was very interesting, the history, but I said you learned something. It was kind of intense, let me tell you. I'm still on the last 2 or 3 chapters, but
You know, you're allowed to skip, you don't have to read
I did, I
everything.
skimmed
Good for you.
the history and the origins and all the rebbies.
But it's nice to know that it existed, you know.
Yeah,
She was
very nice
accused of
class.
doing all these things by the net, but she did, but she was unassuming in such a little mouse.
But people came on time today, I was very impressed, but I think we started by 12:02 for sure. I went to when I went upstairs, it was 12:04 in the kitchen, and you already had been talking.
Maybe see around.
And everybody was like,
Very welcome again. Hello, this is yours?
I had to get out.
I think it's old, actually.
Oh,
Tatiana.
okay, you're very welcome.
Oh, probably.
Let me examine your necklace. This is not the time for prayers.
Very
much.
You need a pin.
Tatiana was sitting here.
Tatiana was sitting there, yeah.
What, the top or the necklace?
Excuse me,
Really?
outside,
Wow.
For Saturdays and for Sundays.
and it's all the different colors of amber.
Line up. Oh, wow.
There, you want to take my phone?
Your what?
My phone?
No, I have a friend of mine,
phone?
who's a brilliant child.
I have,
See there.
Yeah, I was with somebody new.
what?
Can you see?
I don't know, I'm gonna ask, oh, here you are. Okay, first of all, are we still live? Yeah, I agree. This is like 20 minutes. Okay, so, can we erase it? Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Oh, of course. Okay, first of all, is there any way to know